This is Evan Abrams for PremiumBeat.com, and today we're making this wonderful forest of tiny trees using simple vector shapes created inside After Effects. It'll be a nice cartoony effect, very simple to do, very easy to replicate and duplicate. So you can create a whole bunch of trees really quickly and then edit them just the same. So let's open up After Effects and get to it. So we first create a new composition. I'm going to go with the HD TV 1080 24 frames a second preset. 1920 by 1080 pixels that means, and we're going to go with a duration of 30 seconds. Hit OK. Now, first thing I want to do is make a new solid just to create a good background, and I'll just label this background so there's no confusion. And the comp 1, we're going to call forest, just so we know what goes where. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a tree for this. So I'm going to make a new shape layer, or since I already know I'm starting with triangles, I'm going to make a polygon. So I double click on the polygon and it creates this thing. So the first thing I want to do is make sure my fill is set to the gradient fill, okay? And then I want to edit that gradient fill to have a hue of 25, saturation 50-50, okay, that looks good. And then on the stop value, we're going to go with a hue of 25 again. Slightly more saturated, slightly darker. Okay, perfect. That looks good for me. Now inside the polystar, I'm going to make some edits here. We only want 3 points because we want a triangle, and we want an outer radius of 100, and we would like its position to start itself off right there at 0, -50. And that is because it has an outer radius of 100, meaning putting it at -50 puts its bottom right there at the anchor point. Now the gradient, we're going to edit this a little bit. Its start point is going to be at -100, so it runs from -100 to 100 all the way across like so, and that looks perfectly good for us. So now that we have that, this will form our trunk. Go ahead and rename layers by just hitting return and then typing in a new title for them. So what we're going to be doing with this is we're going to be editing its transform polystar 1 group transform. So this transformation is not the same as the transformation for the whole layer, rather it only applies to things within this group of polystar. So what we're going to be editing is going to be its scale. So we're going to hit stopwatch here to set my first keyframe, unlink them, and go from 100 to 100 to starting at 0, 0. Then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames ahead. Then we go 5 by 100. Good. And then we're going to move ahead some more frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm hitting the page down button to do that. And then we're going to be at 10, 100. Perfect. Now we're going to easy ease those by hitting F9 on the keyboard. Or you can go animation, easy ease, or however you like to do it. We're going to go into the graph editor here. Zoom in, select these handles, and pull them like so to create this kind of a look. So it comes up like that. Or what you might want to do is instead grab these handles and pull them in the opposite direction to create the idea that it's hard and then pops out. So we'll do that. Let's just give that a try. Pull them in this direction. So pop, pop. Like so. That's pretty good, I suppose. You can do either one that you would enjoy, so don't feel accountable to me on those. So the next thing I want us to do is to set a rotation value. At the beginning, the rotation, and this is on the transform rotation here, outside of where we put the scale on, the rotation is going to be starting at 0. Move ahead 2 frames, the rotation will now be at 5, and then to 3 frames, rotation will be back to 0. What we're going to do is hold down Alt, and we're going to apply an expression to this, and we're going to apply an inertial bounce so that we create a sine wave that causes it to continue wobbling. Now, my favorite one is here on Motion Graphics Exchange. This is the URL where you can go find it, or if you just Google inertia bounce After Effects, you'll find the same thing. There's an excellent one by Gray Machine as well. Whichever you choose to use, go right ahead. But there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. Just copy this, go in here, and paste. You see, even experts like me definitely reuse people's stuff from time to time. Good. Now, if you want to see the results of your labor, all you have to do is press play and see it waggle about. Or, if you want to see it here in the graph, You need only hit this button right here, and then you can see the resultant curve of what you've created. So that gives you an idea of what's happening. Now we are done with the trunk. Good job. One thing I will say about the trunk though is if we zoom in, you can see that as it wobbles, this thing is like uprooting itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a rectangle, just any old rectangle. It doesn't matter what the fill is or anything. Just inside the rectangle, what I'm going to do is in the rectangle path, I'm going to set it to be 100 by 100 and at 0, 50, which means its top bound is going to be here at the middle of the frame. And then I'm going to take the trunk, I'm going to make its track mat alpha inverted of this, which is just a block. And that block is going to be set to be yellow. Like so. So it cuts off anything we don't want. So that's all well and good. We have a trunk. Let's duplicate it and we'll call it foliage. Now the fill of the foliage, we want to be green. So we'll just change this to have a hue of 100 and the other one to have a hue of 100. Not too much else that needs to be done there. And we need to alter its contents of the polystar, and you know, most notably it doesn't need to rotate, so we can go back to frame 0, remove that rotation, and we're going to parent this foliage to the trunk. So anywhere the trunk goes, the foliage goes too. And I want to go to the transform of the polystar here, and we're going to edit the scale of course, but I also need to change the anchor point here to be -150 and then the position to be 0, -150, which means it's going to scale from the top, which is really important. So now we go to the second keyframe here. We're fine with the first keyframe, but the second keyframe we want to be 10, 90, and then the next keyframe out we want to be 30, 90, just like that. Then we need to offset this by 2 frames so that the trunk is fully grown by the time it starts coming down. So it could be 2 frames, it could be whenever that trunk is fully grown for you, but whenever that happens, that's when you want this to start coming down. So kind of like this. Weep, weep, just like that. So perfect. We've got one tree growing in wonderful aplomb. So that is really working out. Now, the foliage is stuck to the trunk. If we want to make this larger, we can just take the trunk and scale it up like this. And I think that is pretty good. You just want to make sure that your cover is large enough to cover up what is happening with the trunk. Now, certainly the trunk may rock out beyond the sides of this thing, so what you want to do is just make sure that you move it down a few pixels, just a few, so that it sits within that cover still. You just don't want it to get out of control and look strange. Because when we add the shadow, that's when things look strange. So take your tree, you're done with your tree, and go Layer, Pre-Compose. Make sure you've selected all 3 of those layers. Good. And we're going to call this Tree Animation. Good. Now we're going to duplicate that and rename the bottom one Shadow. So if we just solo the shadow, what we want to do is apply a gradient ramp to it. And what that gradient ramp will be is from something like 10 all the way up to something like 90. Nothing too extreme. I'm just going to say swap the colors on this perhaps. Maybe. Yeah, that seems good enough. And on that shadow, it doesn't need to be so opaque. It can be at 50% opacity if you like. Now I'm going to apply something to it called the transform, distort transform, bring that out, and I'm going to alter its scaling using this thing. So the scale height is now going to be 35, and then the skew, and the skew is the important one for us, is going to be at 50, and the skew axis is going to be at 90. So it kind of skews off in this direction. Good, perfect. So now we've got a shadow. When we play it back, the shadow operates exactly the same as the trunk. So perfect, looks great. Take those, we go Layer, Pre-Compose, and we call this Tree plus Shadow. And now we can start duplicating it. So I'm going to look at the proportion grid here, and I'm going to position one here at this intersection, like so. Good, I'm going to duplicate it, I'm gonna move one over here, duplicate, move it over, duplicate, move, duplicate, and move. Perfect, so we've got 5 of them in a row. Then I'm just gonna offset them on the timeline by, a few frames or however many frames you wish to do that. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 3. So they come up like so. Looks wonderful. Now, I'll just take the proportion grid, make it go away, have a look at our creation. Good. And now if you want to go in and you want to edit the way these trees come up, you can just dig in further, and then you can edit them as much as you'd like. So if we say look at the trunk, and we pull up its scale, for example, and we pull up the keyframes that show its scaling and how that's happening, then simply by going to the scale here, we edit up its keyframes, we can create a totally different look. So if we have it go like this, that would be something else. If we pull the handles in a different way, then that would be neat as well to do like so. Anything you want to do, go ahead and edit it, but when you go back to the forest, that change will have happened to everything. So that is, in short, how to create a forest with the trees. This has been Evan Abrams for PremiumBeat.com, your source for royalty-free music and sound effects, much as the music you've heard in this program, which comes from PremiumBeat.com. I'm Evan Abrams. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to learn more about After Effects and other applications, stop by PremiumBeat.com and visit the blog for tips, tricks, and tutorials in not only After Effects, but a lot of other applications from myself and other experts in their craft. If you want to see more of what I do, head over to evanabrams.com or follow me on Twitter at ECAbrams, or check out my YouTube channel. It's pretty good. So thank you for watching, and check out the blog, put it in your RSS feed, and I'll see you around the internet. Thanks again, and have a nice day.